welcome to the next episode of NetKno, the networking show. So on this episode, I want to talk to you about a phenomenon, a very interesting, fascinating thing called social capital. So this is something that I had witnessed through years of networking and seeing people build relationships and how they interact with each other. But to be honest, I didn't know it had a name until I started my PhD, and then delving into the literature, as you do, I found that this is a thing that I've experienced, I've witnessed, but it's actually been studied by people, which I absolutely proper geek out about. Anyway, so social capital is this concept, this construct that exists in regards to the value, I guess, or the perceived value that we'd put on communities, on groups, and it comes down to the access to knowledge, resources that either a community has, or that how valuable we would see a person being, essentially. So in the world of networking, in the world of business or academia, hierarchies exist. Power dynamics are at play. And within networking event environments themselves, it can often feel like there's a big hierarchy. I couldn't possibly go and speak to them because they're more important than me. And there's a lot of imposter syndrome and a lot of self-doubt that comes into play in these environments. But in regards to how we treat each other and how we connect, social capital can sometimes be a good thing, but I think it can also sometimes be a really bad thing. When we meet someone that we deem to be more powerful than us, more have higher levels of social capital, be more influential, we can often behave differently than we would if we met someone that we maybe thought was lower than us in the food chain. So maybe someone that's starting out in their career, someone that's young. So we tend to judge people. We can't help ourselves. We're human. When we first meet them, we judge them on their age, what they dress, how they dress. Again, how much money we think that they have, and there's a lot of this unconscious bias, subconscious bias. Don't know the right word, but I know what I mean. And that influences how we behave towards people. When it comes to social capital and how we deem someone to be more powerful or influential than others, we can potentially either be dismissive of someone if we deem them lower than us in the food chain, or we can become a bit giddy almost and lose our words and what to say and how to behave. And this can impact not only that interaction, but all those future interactions and opportunities that we might have because of it. So when it comes to thinking about our own social capital, it's important to, one, always keep ourselves in check. The more successful you become, the more powerful you become, wherever it is that you work. And as you move up that food chain, it's easy to let that power go to your head and let egos influence how you behave. But I think the first step's to be aware of that and keeping ourselves in check and keeping ourselves humble so that when we are engaging with people who on paper or theoretically are behind us or not beneath us, but I don't know how else to describe it, in that food chain or in that hierarchy, that we don't treat them like they're beneath us. This is the point. We need to give everyone the same amount of time and respect. And because when it comes to networking, you never know who you're talking to. And it's not just who you're talking to in that moment. You never know where they're going to be in the future. So someone, that you meet tomorrow, they could be, just a startup. But fast forward in 5 years and they're the next, the UK's next unicorn. And we need to treat people as if everyone is the most powerful, everyone is the most important, and everyone has that really high level of social capital so that we give everyone the same amount of time and respect. I think we also need to think about how we want others to perceive us in regards to social capital. So making sure that the knowledge, the resources, the things that we have access to, we're sharing in the same way that we want to share our knowledge to build that trust with our network, to showcase our knowledge. What other resources do you have that you could potentially be sharing to add value to the people in your network? Because the reason if you do have, high levels of social capital, people deem you as someone that they want to connect with, they want to bring into their own network. Why is that? What do you have access to? What information, what knowledge, what resources? And are you actively sharing that? Because when it comes to networking, again, what we want to start thinking about is how and where we can add value to the people that we connect with. There's loads of different ways that we can add value. And one of the really easy ones is to connect the people together that we already have in our network. So thinking about any dots that you could potentially connect between people that you know already. Is there anyone that you have existing in your network that would benefit from meeting the person that you've just connected with on LinkedIn, for example, or someone that you meet tomorrow at a networking event? Who else could you connect them with that's going to add value to them? And if you are just starting out in your career, if you're just starting out in networking, it's easy to feel like you don't have any value to give and that your social capital's pretty low. You know, you don't have these resources. You're new. You don't have the knowledge that other people have. And that can, again, become a barrier to effective networking. But regardless of what stage you're at in your career, in your networking journey, you always have the ability to connect people. You just have to ask questions and listen. So when you're next at a networking event, simply say to someone, who is it that you're looking to meet? And if they say everyone, well, punch them in the face for one, because I hate that. Well, don't punch them in the face. That's not acceptable behavior at a networking event. But if say to someone, who are you looking to connect with? Who's a good connection for you? Who's a good person to be introduced to? Who are you looking to work with at the minute? And really make sure that they are specific. So even if they could help anyone and everyone that they know, what you want to do is get out of them who would be useful for them to speak to now. And then anyone that you know that you could potentially introduce to them, that's a great way of adding value. And when you do that, you instantly increase your social capital. You instantly become someone who's more valuable to others because you're adding value to them. And when it comes to networking, we often can focus a bit too much on, being maybe salesy and what we can take out of the network. What can we get? What resources can we take from this community? And like sucking out the social capital that exists there. When actually what we want to be doing is we want to be adding that social capital back into it, adding value into the people that we meet, that we connect with. That's going to add value to that community, that network as a whole. And by doing that, you are going to get so much more value back in return. And this could happen. I've said it before, I'll say it again. It could happen overnight. It could happen the next week, next month, or it could be something that happens 5-10 years down the line. You just never know. And this is part of the exciting thing and the joy of networking is the excitement of the unknown. So going out and yes, making sure that even though we do judge and we are aware and we think, oh, well, that person's like more powerful than me. They're not. They're just a human. They put their socks on one at a time in the morning. They are just as important and just as valuable as you are. And remembering that is really important. And treating everyone that way is also really important. But also looking for ways in which you can increase your social capital by adding value back into the community, back into the network that you're part of. And knowing that by doing that, you are someone that others are going to want to connect with. They're going to want to share with. They're going to want to add value to in return. And that's when you're going to get so much more back than trying to just suck the life out of it, essentially. So there you have it. Social capital. Get on Google Scholar. Fun fact, there are 2 Googles, if you didn't know. Google Scholar, absolutely fantastic. Have a little look. Social capital, absolutely fascinating. Let me know what you think. Have you experienced that? Have you ever been dismissed at a networking event? I know I have, many a times. Has anyone ever kind of treated you badly, thinking that they were above you? The hierarchies come into play in your industry, for example, or the world that you work in. Let me know. I'd love to hear your stories. Share away. So also make sure that you subscribe, obviously. Press the bell and you'll be notified as soon as the next episode is released. And I shall see you then.
A Liquid Studios production.